Hello and welcome to the third Inspireurope Plus webinar. Today we're talking about collaboration with industry and society to support researchers at risk. My name is Henriette Stoeber. I'm a policy analyst at the European University Association, and we are co-hosting this webinar together with the University of Gothenburg in the context of the Inspireurope project. The European University Association is a membership association. We bring together around 850 higher education institutions in various activities, such as the Inspireurope project, and in various events, such as this webinar today. Before we start, and before I hand over to the chair and our distinguished guests and speakers, I will actually have the role of housekeeping and background. So let's start with the housekeeping part. As you can see here on the slide, and there are various ways of how you can interact with us today. On the right-hand side of your screen, you should be able to see two functions. The chat function, where you can say hello to each other as participants, say where you're from, what university you're working at, and so on. And you can also flag technical issues to my colleagues that are working with us in the background so they can help you resolve these issues, such as can't hear you, can't see the slide, this kind of stuff. And there's also, perhaps more importantly, the Q&A section. Here, I would like to warmly encourage you to ask questions to all of our speakers and to contribute to the discussion that we will have at the end of the webinar today. The poll function we're actually not using today, so we can skip this part and move on to the next slide. Now, as I had mentioned, I would like to just give you a very brief background on the Inspireurope Plus project. We are working in the context that around the world today, there are many scholars and academics that are facing a threatening situation due to, for instance, war in their countries, due to the work that they carry out as a researcher or academic, due to their status as an academic, religion, personal background, and so on and so forth. So they might find themselves in a situation where they have to leave their country and find a safe haven for themselves and their families, but also to continue with their research and with their academic work. And this is the context in which the Inspireurope Plus project functions. If we could move to the next slide, please. Inspireurope is the initiative to support, promote, and integrate researchers at risk in Europe. And indeed, it already has a plus, and this is because we are finding us already in the second version of this project. The first one was running from 2019, and currently we're looking at a project until the end of 2025. Also in the Plus version of Inspireurope, the consortium is pretty much the same. It has been and is currently coordinated by Scholars at Risk Europe, which is hosted at Masoud University in Ireland, and it is funded by the European Union through the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions and Horizon Europe. If we could move next, you will see on the next slide, you will see the overview of our partners. I already mentioned Brizar Europe and Masoud University. University of Gothenburg, as well as Aristotle University are also our partners, as well as the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation in Germany, the Council for At-Risk Academics, CARA, in the UK, and the PAUSE program, which is also a national program dedicated to supporting researchers at risk in France. You can also see we have some international, so beyond Europe, reaching associate partners, including IIE and the global version of Scholars at Risk. Next, please. I warmly invite you to have a look at our website. I won't go through the various activities and actions that we carry out in the project in this version and the previous one, but overall our aim is to support researchers at risk in Europe, coordinating and improving the support that exists, but also growing and diversifying the support at the national levels, at the institutional levels, and also at the policy levels. So for instance, for researchers, we provide trainings and webinars to develop their career. For instance, we try to help host institutions, current and future potential hosts, institutions and institutes, to build their capacity, to prepare them for hosting and so on. And for instance, from the side of EUA, the European University Association, our role is to inform the European and national policy levels about researchers at risk, to underline why it is important to support this specific, international talent pool that could be joining Europe's workforces. Next slide, please. And we already had 2 webinars on in the aspect of supporting institutional preparedness and capacity. The first one on remote fellowships, the second one on career assessment. I put the YouTube links here on the slide, and of course you will receive all the slides as well as the recording of this event in an email when we wrap up. Today we're talking about collaboration with industry and society, and just to give you a bit of context here as well. In the first round of Inspire Europe, we did quite some research, interviewing researchers at risk, interviewing their hosts, doing some surveys, and this all resulted in a report and policy recommendations as well. And in this work, we really found that many of the researchers that were currently hosted at European higher education institutions and institutes were finding it quite difficult to find follow-up employment after the 1 or 2 year fellowship was over. Follow-up employment within academia, within their host institution or other institutions in the country, but also, and perhaps especially so, outside academia, so in the non-academic labor market. Now, of course, as any researcher in Europe today, researchers at risk were also facing the precarious situation of the academic labor market. But on top of that, they were really new to the European labor market, both academically and non-academically. So in Inspire Europe Plus, we are trying to address this topic a little bit further and see how we can enhance collaboration with industry and society, so to help hosts and to help researchers to transition to the non-academic labor market, should they wish to do so. And this is indeed what we will be talking about today. If we could have the next slide, I will actually now hand over to the chair of today's webinar, who is Carolina Catoni. She is the acting head of the International Center at the University of Gothenburg, and she's also the coordinator of the Swedish ZAR section. A big thank you to Carolina, because she is taking over at the very last minute from her colleague Sarah, who unfortunately has been taken ill. So we wish all the best to Sarah and hope she makes a swift recovery. And thanks again, Carolina, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Henriette. Thank you, and welcome from my end as well. And as Henriette said, my name is Carolina Catoni. I'm working at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, and I'm sharing the Swedish section of SAR. As already mentioned, the topic for today's webinar is collaboration with industry and society to support research at risk. And the primary target group for this webinar is host institutions, universities, or other employers that have recruited researchers at risk, but also, of course, open to all that are interested. And with me here today, I have, apart from Henriette, also 5 different and excellent speakers who will give their take on how researchers at risk can collaborate with industry and society. And we are hoping that they will broaden the picture on the transfer from academia and research, and what researchers and the hosting institution can and should do to make a smooth transition. Good. So our first speaker here today is Masoud Ghulami. He's a Scholars at Risk graduate and working as a consultant. And he will be the first one out. And secondly, we will hear from Therese Lindkvist, who is the National EURAXESS Coordinator in Sweden, hosted at Linköping University. And then we will move on into the same city and move on to Linköping Science Park and Hela Galvis Bonilla, who will tell us about her work within Switch to Sweden. Then the fourth speaker is Marina Brizar, who is the Director for UK and Europe from Talent Beyond Boundaries. And lastly, we will be joined by Cristina Graziani, who is an external professor at the University of Padova in Italy. And by this, I would like to move on and hand over to our first speaker. So, Masoud, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thanks, Carolina. Hello, everyone. My name is Masoud Ghulami. I was once actually working as postdoctoral researcher at University of Nice with the support I've got from the program POSE here in France. And currently I'm working with a consultancy firm. So here in this seminar, I'm going to talk about my own experience some parts might be related to the institutions, but also it's probably my audience can be also the researchers themselves. They want to look for the possibilities, opportunities outside the academia. So this is, let's say, mainly my own experience, which I'm sharing with you. To start with, I'm going to talk about how I found about the job market, because I was also new in France and I didn't know the market. Probably some of the things are very, very general everywhere. We should have networking. That's the first step to start, asking others for their experience. And I had a friend, maybe this can be kind of good tip for everyone. He was saying when he started his career again in France, he started to find few people in different companies and started to send him a message. Could you please share with me how you become successful to find a job, or can you give me some insights? And then he said, he was a social scientist, and he was saying people love to talk about themselves, which I believe him. So then he was saying, through these people, even sometimes I could meet with them, and I could actually use their experience and knowledge about how I can find a job. But here, again, apart from big websites or platforms like LinkedIn, Indeed, in case of any country, I believe there are some platforms designed for local opportunities, which may be only in their own language, but also sometimes also it might be possible to find the jobs for, let's say, international researchers or people that speak English. So that was actually a first challenge for me to start inside the market in France. I needed to improve my French. However, the company which I'm working at the moment is an international, and the language we use is English. But still, in order to get into the job market, first we need to know the local market as well. So in terms of the institutional support which I've had from the program POSE, they provided lots of support. They also intended to give us the fund for having, let's say, some sort of mentorship programs, working on our CVs, and finding people to help us with the language and so on. So this kind of things can be really helpful, especially if I want to point out one very, very useful help which I got actually was to kind of improve my CV. We had a very, very good scholar. She helped me to revise my resume, because it's very important for those people. They have only the experience of academia, how to translate these experiences we had into the projects, into the transferable skills, which will be, let's say, interesting for their companies, because companies are not looking at the same with the same kind of concept at what we did in the academia. So that was one of the most useful, I can say, help which I got. And another aspect, if I want to look back and say, okay, what could be better in my transition, I remember this when I joined the university, my professor was telling me, if you think about moving outside academia, do it as soon as possible. I can say this, yeah, starting it earlier always can help, because in the beginning, probably it's not easy. It takes some time, especially for those they never had the experience to work with the industry and always they were in the academia. So that can be tricky. So starting it earlier will be the best strategy to follow. And knowing my transferable skills. As I mentioned, again, right now, for example, in my CV, I listed all the previous projects which I've done in the academia as the projects, as project, and which kind of skills or which kind of, let's say, output we had for each and every project. So that can be very useful, and companies will like to see the CVs that way. So knowing more about career development framework of the company which I was joining, this is also something which we may look at that. It will be a bit tricky, but when you're going for an interview, probably they're going to ask you what questions you have from us and things like this. But knowing all this, because each and every company, they may have their own career development framework, is better to be aware of that and to know for which position you will be in and how you can progress inside the company. And most important, which I think it's the key skill we need to have, apart from analytical skills we all have as researchers, is the managing time and money. So this is the biggest difference, because in the industry, the time and money is much more limited than the academic world, at least in my experience. And then, of course, communication skills, which we already developed over years by presenting our results to broader audience and so on. So that can be very, very helpful. Here, just maybe one more point I need to mention about the role of institution, which I talked about in my own experience. The nature of the work we do at the university, how much collaborations we have with the industries, so that can help researchers really. And in my case, it was there. Like, we were working on the projects which were defined by the local agencies, or we had collaborations with some industries. So that helped me a lot in order to find a job, or to know the market and to know what is needed outside academia. So I talked about the transferable skills, so that communication, again, I'm saying effectively communicate the complex ideas to diverse audience, and project management, let's say time, money, everything related to project, that can be very important aspect. We already have it, in my opinion, as a researcher, but we have to be able to demonstrate it better. So, and because the time is limited, I'm going to finish with a few suggestions at the end to the peers. By summarizing what I already said, is just actively network and explore opportunities outside academia, and try to develop a diverse skill set to enhance employability. It's not important how many degrees we have at the end, and it's more important which skills we have and how we can be useful for the company which is going to hire us. So, and for the institutions, again, stronger collaboration with the industry, that can help a lot, and provide mentorship programs, the type of programs which I've had, and incorporate practical skills into the academic curricula, the program, and to have it, for the scientists, for the researchers to be aware of the opportunities inside what's happening in the industry and which kind of skills might be needed. Thank you. So thank you so much, Kelly. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Masoud. Thank you. And thank you for kicking off this webinar in such an excellent way with those very hands-on suggestions, coming from your own experience. Very practical, but also very useful. It's especially interesting to hear also about the difference when it comes to industry and academia, when it comes to the timeline and the money scheme. So very good. I would like to remind our participants that you have the possibility to ask questions in using the Q&A function. So please feel free to post questions there. And Masoud, you came up with so many good suggestions and practical advice, both to host institutions, but also to peers and colleagues, scholars. But I also wanted to ask you, is there any kind of support that you would have wished for or needed from your host during the time that you were hosted in this?
To me, actually, I already got lots of support. I cannot say really I missed something. As I mentioned, we had this collaboration with the industry already in place. So that helped me a lot. My mentor, or let's say my professor, he was taking me to different meetings they've had with the companies, or when the project was going to be started, even in that part. So it helped me a lot. And also from the program post, as I mentioned, I got help for revising my resume, and that was also very, very useful, because the way, for example, here in France again, and I think most of the European countries might be interested that way, you need to have one page of resume, and that's it. So what to put there, how to outline the most important, let's say, skills you have, and show it in front. So this is something which helped me a lot. So I think that can be very useful, because some of the things might be how more complicated for those institutions. They don't have much collaboration already with the industry, so it's not something just to provide for the scholars at risk they are hosting. So I don't think if that's happening just for this purpose, but also but still how can I say, like at least to provide kind of some sort of forums or connections to connect the already graduate people. They are working in different companies or wherever in any institute, and connecting them with the scholars at risk just join, because this kind of forums, they exist, but mainly for the maybe master students. They graduated from these universities. They have this kind of forums, I believe, everywhere, but try to introduce these scholars at risk to this kind of forums and ask them to help the scholars at risk. I think that can be something which can be done in the host institutions. To sum it up, is just, as I mentioned, to get the experience of others, to know more about opportunities, skills, whatever which is needed, which is out there through other people.
Thank you very much, Masoud. Thank you. And I know that there are now a few questions in the Q&A function, and they are mainly towards you, directed towards you, Masoud, regarding how long you have been in France, for example. So my suggestion is that maybe you could answer that in in the using the Q&A function
Sure.
as well, and then
Sure.
we could move on in order to also keep
Sure.
the time,
Yeah.
track of our time. So
Sure.
thank you for now, Masoud.
Sure.
And
Thanks.
by this, I would also like to welcome our next speaker on stage or on screen, and that is Therese Lindkvist from EURAXESS Sweden. So I think that this talk from Masoud will be also a good bridge into your talk, Therese. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the organizers for inviting me and having me talk about EURAXESS. So in 1 second, I will just start sharing my screen and we'll get started. So yes, as I mentioned, I represent EURAXESS, actually the project manager or national coordinator for EURAXESS Sweden, but I'm also based here at Linköping University. So a little bit of background about EURAXESS. It's an initiative started by the European Commission actually 20 years ago this year. We celebrate 20 years. Because Europe as a whole saw a need to come together to be the most desired research destination in the world. So we work together in the EURAXESS network to take away obstacles for doing research in Europe. We work a lot for mobility, and now also in the later years, a lot for career development, both inside and outside academia. So we do have a lot of good information also if you are staying in academia, but as this webinar is focusing on outside academia, I want to show a little bit about what we're doing there. So this is a picture from our portal, actually the Swedish part of the portal, but all countries that are represented, which is more or less all the European countries. And we also have 9 hubs around the world, helping us in the different parts of the world to promote Europe as a research destination. So what you can find here is jobs. So that's primarily academic jobs in this case, funding and hosting opportunities. But there's also a lot of, as you see, information and assistance, webinars, etc., that you can take part in to know more about your research career. So that's the basis of it. So again, if you for some reason stay in academia, this is also a very good place to look. But what we do have as well is a lot of career tools that I think could be very handy, because they focus on choosing or looking at the different career paths that are as a researcher inside academia or outside academia. So for instance, we have a career orientation tool called No Limits, which giving you the possibility to really dig into your different options and maybe find out a little bit more where you are more suited or where you feel like you want to end up later along the line. We also have a career handbook for young researchers, a little bit about how to do career planning and about taking time and not doing it last minute. And again, as I mentioned, there's webinars and trainings gathered as well on this page. Another important way of or alternative career path is, of course, entrepreneurship. And that's also here you can find some good tools on if you're thinking about doing maybe starting your own business or taking your research to market in some way. So that's also, of course, a possible career forward. To know more on different kind of topics, most of them related to career in some way, we have a podcast called EURAXESS Smart Talks that gives highlights different subjects and are released wherever you usually find your podcasts. So please look into that. to know how to transition into or outside of academia, a good alternative could be to have a mentor who's done exactly that. So EURAXESS in Spain actually offers a international mentoring program called Rebecca. So Researchers Beyond Academia Mentoring Program. And here, the participants are assigned a mentor that has done the transition somehow outside academia. And then they are followed through a program which you can apply to from wherever you are in Europe. This is not exactly a EURAXESS product per se, but since we are closely connected to or run by the European Commission, this is a product from the Commission. It's been just recently released. It's called the Research Comp, European Competence Framework for Researchers. So it's a little bit about what Masoud actually talked about transferable skills. So when you need to transition from academia to industry, it can usually be quite daunting and understanding your place in this new world. So the Commission has taken out its 7 different main areas with 38 different competencies that are usually strong or presence in a researcher's sort of capabilities. As you mentioned about communication, Masoud mentioned, etc., etc. So this is a great tool for helping you identifying your transferable skills, which you then can use to sort of sell yourself when it comes to employers. So again, how do you get started? And I would say that even the very first thing to think about is to not start too late. Of course, sometimes we even talk about, for instance, for a PhD student, that to even start more or less in the beginning to think about your next step, even though, of course, you are very packed with things to do already. But it's important to bear in mind, because many of these things don't come overnight. It's a process. So, but the first thing I would say, which is very hands-on, is, as I mentioned, one of the tools we have to make a career plan. So where do you see yourself, and what do you see the progress, and what actions would you need to take to get there? So planning would, of course, be the first step. And also, as I think Masoud mentioned, the importance of networking. Here in Sweden, that's it's a very big part of how you get jobs, both outside and inside academia, but especially outside. So start networking, work on your LinkedIn page, kind of make connections, talk to people when you're out there, make sure that you are part of their network and you make them part of your. Often, whether it's a very as in Sweden, we are very prone to speaking English. That, of course, differs a lot around Europe, but learning the local language is always a good idea. It could be for actually being able to work, but could also be for integration and being a part of your workplace. Usually, academia is very sort of more easy to be only English speaking. But if possible, please think about learning the local language. And again, as I mentioned in the research comp, and also as Masoud mentioned, investigate your soft skills and your transferable skills that will then be, because you are not only your titles, you are so much more, and you bring so much more to the table, and the employers need to know this. So investigate your soft skills, and then you will take this into your CV and your applications, and when you start talk to people for real. And then, of course, it's just learning by doing, or just get out there and try to make contacts. whenever you're ready for that. So that was a little bit, or most of it, what I had to present. But of course, I want to take the chance to follow us on LinkedIn if you want to know more about what we do. And yeah, again, also I will take questions, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Therese. Thank you. That was excellent, and an excellent follow-up to Masoud's presentation as well. I have one question from the Q&A function for you, and that is regarding the support that is available through the EURAXESS network. If that is available to all, or is it, does it only have to be limited to the universities? Where do you have to be a member of the EURAXESS network in order to take part in your offers, so to speak?
No, so more or less all of it. I would suggest everyone to just you start a profile so that you can get access to all these things. But there are tools and there are policies, library of good things that is free for everyone. And I would say or a very high number of the education institutions all around Europe are connected to EURAXESS. So it would be good to check that out, because you can get a little bit, of course, extra support from your own university if they are your EURAXESS center. But taking part of what's on the portal, that's for everyone who's interested. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And also, before I heard your presentation, I also typed the question, in regarding if you need help to make a career plan or to map your competences, where to turn to. But I think that you more or less answered that throughout your presentations. But would you like to elaborate a little bit on that one, or would you like to add something?
So of course, I would say, that's quite individual from each institution on how much support you can actually get. But I would say that we do have a lot of efforts for anyone who's interested to take part in these, as I mentioned, the mentoring programs and the webinars and different. So just keep an eye out for what's coming up, and then that's open for everyone who wants to participate, to get help. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Therese. And I also know that we had a question regarding the local language in the chat, but I also know that Henriette will answer that one in the chat as well. So thank you very much for now, Therese. And we will now move on to Hela, Galvis, Bonilla from Switch to Sweden. And you are based at Linköping Science Park, so in the same city as Therese, but a different setting. So go ahead,
that's
please.
Correct. Thank you. I will share my screen now. Great. So yes, thank you so much for the invitation to participate in this event. We think that it's highly important to share the knowledge regarding how to help academic talents transitioning into the industry. So we really appreciate to share what we have done until now. So first of all, I could start by introducing myself. My name is Hela Galvis. I work as a project manager in the Linköping Science Park in Sweden, as Therese also. Yes, but I'm actually Colombian. So I came to Sweden as an international talent. I came here, did my master's at Linköping University. Now currently I'm working at the Science Park, working on this transition between academia to industry, both towards PhD students and master students. Yes, however, I would like to start by introducing the Science Park here in Linköping. The Science Park is an organization managed by specialized talent and it aims to increase the wealth of its community by promoting the culture of innovation and the competitiveness of associated knowledge-based institutions. Therefore, we work closely with knowledge-based companies that work mostly within visualization and image analysis, mobile communication, automated safety, and IPTV streaming media. Also, we work very closely with lead business incubators. So our job is to kind of work in this innovative ecosystem where we take research from the university and can transition it through different institutions towards the business incubator, and then we help them scale up when the startups are created. But of course, within all of this environment, there are multiple projects within technology, and most importantly, I work with the area of talent attraction. Yes, and the Science Park in Linköping, it is quite unique all over Sweden because we're the only science park that has this specific area of talent attraction. And the reason why this is happening is because talent attraction is the #1 challenge for companies today. This is not only happening in Sweden, all over Europe, there are plenty of organizations that work both with tech or other knowledge-based businesses such as biotech or medtech that need highly qualified talents, but unfortunately this talent is not currently in Europe. Therefore, one of our main goals is to attract talent and also to foster the students to study the right programs that can help the businesses in the future, but also create different connections within talent mobility within Europe and also outside Europe. In order to do this, sorry, we have an employer brand. We help companies to brand themselves to attract more talents. Also, we have several activities within networking, community building, and yeah, we want to make Linköping and of course the area of Linköping Science Park an attractive and interesting place where people can connect and they can feel that they belong. Now, I would like to speak more specifically about the project that I'm working with. It's called Switch to Sweden. This is a national project financed by Vinnova. Vinnova is the Swedish innovation agency. And the aim of the project is to increase the qualified matches of international academic talents and companies in Sweden. So how do we do this? Basically, we work with both both target groups. We work with the international talents from master's and PhD levels. And basically, we want to understand their experience as a student coming to Sweden. How is their process of developing their study and their career here? And then what's the experience when they want to look for a job, either in Sweden or abroad? Like, what are their options? On the other hand, we also work with companies in Sweden. So we need to understand what are their talent needs, how are their recruitment processes, what is their experience when it comes to working with international talents, and of course, how can we support them to attract the right competency that they need. We do this also in a systematic way based on an AI matchmaking tool. So we conduct matchmaking activities. These are national matchmaking activities where we invite all master's and PhD students from universities in Sweden. So these students are already here, and we match them with the companies. So the objective of doing this is to kind of go to the nitty-gritty of what is the current skill that the company is lacking. These skills could be hard skills or soft skills, and then we go through, we talk with the talents and we ask them to report like what are their current skills, and then that's how the matches happen. When there is a positive match, we help both companies and talents to have a 20-minute meet and greet to develop more the personal contact between the international talents and companies. And as it has been mentioned before in the other presentations, in Sweden, it's very important to create a personal contact and a relationship to network and to introduce yourself, not only as your CV or your expertise or programs that you have graduated before, but more like who are you as a person, what are your interests, and how you can connect those interests and potential with the company. So the relationship building is very important in Sweden. Yes, but besides this, we also published a report called the Talent Report in 2022. There, we really wanted to dive deeper into the experience of both coming to Sweden, studying in Sweden, and then trying to get into the labor market for talents. And then we surveyed more than 500 international academic talents, both from master's and PhD levels. and also researchers. So 22% of respondents works already in academia in research. And on the other hand, we surveyed more than 100 companies in Sweden and conducted 25 in-depth interviews. Based on these results, of course, we share all the information based on results, but also we did an analysis on what are the current barriers and opportunities where this process can be improved. So here I would like to share with you some of the findings. Yes, currently companies in Sweden have a huge need for talent, specialized talent. Most of the companies in Sweden act on international markets, so the products and services that they develop are sold abroad. They have a positive outlook on international talents. However, 69% of the respondents require Swedish language proficiency in order to work. And I think like one of the most interesting insights here is that only 14% recruit PhD students or higher educated academic talents, meaning that the majority of companies who answer the survey don't really understand how they can integrate a PhD into their workforce, not because they don't want to, but they just don't know how to integrate somebody that comes from academia into their business model. So it's more like a lack of knowledge than a lack of interest. On the other hand, the findings regarding talents is that retention is the new attraction. Sweden is a very attractive destination to study. So talents, highly specialized talents are already coming here. However, we do have a retention problem. The majority of students that come to study here, they do not stay in the country when they finish their studies. Therefore, sharing the experience of the students that actually got a job and were able to continue their career here is very important to show the new students that are coming how they can make this process. We need to focus a lot more on retention and how to improve the experience for the specialized talent in order to attract more talent. In the results, we can see that 75% of the master's students want to stay in Sweden. However, only 20% stay today. And 43% are open to move for a job. So an interesting finding is like, if you're an international student in Sweden and you finish your career, Sweden is an option. But of course, all Europe is an option, or all other countries outside Europe are an option. So these are talents that have no problem to move, really, if they find an interesting work opportunity. Yes, and the conclusion of how can we improve the process of transition is basically these 3 points. First, language and culture. Language is one of the biggest barriers why international talents cannot find a job in Sweden, and also working culture. So besides learning the language in a proficient level, it's highly important to understand the working culture of the company and of the industry. The second is retention and integration. As mentioned before, many of the talents that actually get a job, if they don't feel welcome, or if they don't feel that they can develop in their new position, they will likely move abroad to another option. So the experience while they're here, it's equally important as attracting them. And lastly, migration and administration. This is a bit more of a policy-making process here in Sweden, but currently this is improving. Migrationsverket, which is the migration agency in Sweden, has updated their process for working permits. So now it will take only 30 days to have an answer, either if the work permit is granted or not. So regarding Sweden, in the policy migration for highly specialized talent is actually improving and moving faster. So this is a good thing happening right now. Now, what I would like to share is the specific matchmaking activity that we have for Maria Sklodowska Career Actions talents. I hope, of course, I believe that you may know this group, but otherwise I can clarify what it is. And basically, these are researchers that represent excellence in Europe, and they were granted a special scholarship from the Maria Sklodowska Career Actions to continue their research. And right now in Sweden, there is around 200 or 300 researchers in different universities. And Vinnova launched a specific call to attract and retain them. The call is called Attract, Integrate, and Retain International Excellence. So the purpose of this is to help companies in Sweden to hire one of these talents. And in order to do that, they can get funding for the 6 months of salary, the first 6 months of salary, to attract these talents. Right now, the participants that have been participating in the matchmaking activity are within the fields of artificial intelligence, sensor systems, med technology, green transition, biochemistry, energy optimization, and biomedicine. And the talents that have registered are within computer science, biochemistry, electrical engineering, micro and nanoscience, manufacturing engineering, and medical science, data science. With this, I just wanted to show that most of the expertise within PhD students in general, not only the Marie Curie Fellows, but in general, are heavily related with deep tech, digital transition, and green transition. And lastly,
Hela,
yes.
I just want to say that the time is up, so you have to be very brief and start to wrap up.
Yeah, just as a result, 60 companies have participated, 90 talents have participated. We have in total 67 matches, and 6 talents have been hired. That's pretty much from my side. If you would like to know more about the project, please visit switchtosweden.se or contact me or my colleague Anna Brothers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hela, for taking us through both the work that you do at Linköping Science Park and also Switch to Sweden. And since I know that we have quite a few participants, that this is a European project, and we have quite a few participants, covering different parts of Europe, I also wanted to ask you, because I'm sure that there are similar initiatives in many countries in other parts of Europe. Do you have any tips or tricks on how to reach those initiatives?
Yeah, I agree with the previous recommendations that have been shared before. It has to do a lot with self-initiative. And yes, as you just mentioned, each country works quite differently. And I wouldn't say that there is a common solution or a common way of doing these processes to find the right opportunity to connect you to companies when you're an international talent student. But it has to do a lot with looking first what is your university doing, how can your university help you to contact the industry. On the other hand, also look to contact alumni, people that have already made the journey. So it has to do a lot with how you can understand your own process in your own country. There is not a perfect solution or a perfect formula. It has to do with a lot of try and error.
Thank you very much, Hela. Thank you. So I think that by this we will move on, and we will get back to you later on in the program as well. So thank you very much for your contribution. And by this, I would like to give the floor to Marina Brizar from Talent Beyond Boundaries. And I think that we will start by watching a video, but I will give the floor to you, Marina. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here. Really excited to be speaking to institutions. And from what I can see in the questions, a lot of academics looking at how to make a transition. The program that I work on is very specific. It's for people who are currently displaced, living in displacement, and have an academic background and looking to transition not only out of academia and into industry, but also out of displacement. So the best way to describe it is with a video. So if we can go with that, it's about 90 seconds, but it will frame the rest of my comments. So please go ahead.
We're always facing hiring challenges.
I'm now finally able to work legally in my profession.
the minute I set foot on that plane, I actually dare to start dreaming again.
Thank you. So yes, I am the UK and Europe Director of Talent Beyond Boundaries. So Talent Beyond Boundaries is the only organisation in the world that works with what's called displaced talent mobility. And that means lifting people out of displacement into jobs, into a new life through skilled migration. Now, the reason that this is connected to the work of universities is twofold. So the first is that a lot of people are registered on what's called our talent catalog, which is a database and a software that is our engine behind displaced talent mobility. And many of them are in fact academics. They are people who hold PhDs, they are researchers, they are lecturers, and so on. We know of at least 900 of those people who have worked in universities that no longer exist due to conflict, and people who have had to flee because of their ideas and because of their academic work. And so in the first instance, there is a pool of candidates who are looking for opportunities to either remain in academia or to turn that into industry knowledge. So that's one angle where Talent Beyond Boundaries fits within the university sector. The second is that universities have been an employer of displaced talent. There are lots of initiatives around the world and a lot in the UK and Europe which actually supports academics at risk. And we partner with CARA as this program does also. And it's really looking at how do you transition someone from a period or a place of displacement into a valuable and meaningful and purposeful opportunity. Now, the main way that we've seen that happen is that academics typically get a job within a university structure that does not necessarily correlate to actually becoming an academic or researcher. Now, what I mean by that is most recently we worked with an educational institution in the UK. They were working with an academic on a project in Afghanistan. It was part of a global NATO initiative, and then once the Taliban took over in Afghanistan, that person then became at risk in terms of being able to continue on that project. Now, there was not an opportunity for the university to hire that person or to allow for migration of that person as an academic because of things like contractual structures, tenures, visas, and so on. But what they were able to do is to use the skills of that academic into effectively like an industry consulting position, whereby they use their skills but actually effectively worked as a software engineer to continue the project that they were working on in the IT sector. So I think that in terms of institutions, there are two opportunities for institutions. The first is to consider whether in any academic positions or in any research positions, there is capacity to both do the smart thing of filling that position, but the right thing by potentially lifting someone out of displacement. The second is to think about creative ways in which to allow academics to migrate and to contribute based on their research, their transferable and adaptable skills. The way that displaced talent mobility works, very briefly, you saw it in the video, it's basically where we go to the talent catalogue, which has now over 80,000 people registered from all different countries, all different professions. I think we have 170 occupations on the talent catalogue. Then we work with employers to say, what is your need? What is your skills gaps? How can we fill that skill gap with someone from the talent catalogue? We then work with governments and organizations to work out visas, and those visas are typically skilled migration visas. So for example, in the UK, we use a skilled worker visa. We're more and more looking at the global talent visa, which is very relevant for academics. In Europe, we're using the blue card, the single permit in a number of European countries. And then finally, we then work to actually bring that person into that new country and then help with their integration. Integration being things like language support for their family, making sure that mental health services are available, post-arrival training and orientation to make sure that they can be prepared and adapt to their new life in their new country. So that process end to end is called displaced talent mobility. In terms of our global reach, we have, as I mentioned, people registering on the talent catalogue from many countries, but TBB has offices in Lebanon and Jordan, and we work with partners across Asia, across Latin America, East Africa mostly. And then in terms of destinations where these people are going, the skilled refugees, it is Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Portugal, and Ireland. In terms of those European countries, that was a project that we are undertaking, supported by the European Commission and led by the International Organization for Migration. It's called Displaced Talent for Europe. What's really exciting is that from March, we're expanding our reach again through the support of the European Commission, IOM, and other partners into Italy, France, Spain, Slovakia, and independently working with Germany. So I think that the key message here is that institutions can be employers. There are creative solutions for academics who are in displacement to be able to actually move and restart their lives at those institutions or through connections of those institutions. And finally, that there is possibility to transfer adaptable skills of academics and researchers into industry within the university. So to run a university, it's not only academics and lecturers, it is the IT department, it's the finance department, it is so many other things. There's program management. Having worked at a university myself, I know that there are so many facets. So how do you look at where you can support someone's development and someone's participation in the labour market through the skills that they have, but then also making sure that it is of benefit to the university and the institution. So all in all, displaced talent mobility is very much an emerging what's called a complementary pathway, because it is a solution for a humanitarian crisis and displacement, but it is one that is safe and it's regular and it's based on someone's skill, their empowerment and their capabilities. So I think the message today is displaced talent mobility would be better for partnering with educational institutions. And I do think that there is a lot of creativity and innovation that can happen in this space. And so to leave some time for questions, I will leave it at that. But really my final thought is a call to action to say, get in touch if you are interested. And beyond displacement, I think that the messages of adapting and transferable skills should resonate with existing students and academics at risk within university structures going through their student pathways. So thank you again for the opportunity and look forward to receiving some questions.
Thank you so much, Marina, for taking us through the Talent Beyond Boundaries and learning more about the initiative. It's wonderful to hear all the work that you're doing. It's very impressive. I also read on the website that one of the goals for 2024 is to create more of those country programs with European countries. So we are, of course, all interested to see that development come. I had a quite practical question for you, Marina. We were talking. You mentioned this this specific case where. Sometimes a scholar is registered as a scholar. The scholar thinks that it needs to have an academic position because that's what you do. Mm-hmm. Do you also give advice and support to the talents that are registering within your database to also be open to other possible opportunities outside the actual, maybe a case that you're normally operating within? Or
absolutely. I mean, we don't ordinarily just work with scholars. We have placed nurses and butchers and archaeologists and accountants. So the way that we do it is that we encourage candidates to, the way that they register in a talent catalog is effectively like you'd sign up for LinkedIn. You know, you get a series of questions, your qualifications, your skills, your experience, etc. And then that builds a profile, which allows TBB and partners to search for that individual. Our technology, so the talent catalog, is quite sophisticated and uses what's called Elasticsearch. And so if we're looking, for example, for someone with Java experience and they happen to be a lecturer, we get in touch with them and say, hey, there's this opportunity to be a Java software engineer. See that you're a lecturer. Are you ready, willing, and able to be a practitioner and go to industry? And then it is a matter of that individual deciding whether that is for them or whether they'd like to remain in sort of a scholarly profession. So, I mean, yeah, a title is a title, but I think that we really go to the competency and the subject matter expertise of the individual and present opportunities to them in that way. I will just say globally, we've placed more than 1,300 people so far in our programming across the world. And by 2027, we are planning for that to increase to 15,000. So what we're seeing is really exponential growth of this untapped talent pool of people who are in displacement but are highly skilled. And so, again, the smart thing to do, but the right thing to do.
Thank you very much, Marina, for explaining that to us. It sounds like an excellent program. So thank you very much. And I would like to remind our participants that it's possible to ask questions in the Q&A function as well. Firstly, I would like to we have heard so much, we have learned so much throughout this webinar, and so many wise things has been said regarding, you know, transferable skills, regarding alumni, regarding mentorship programs, networking, learning about potential employees, soft skills and languages. But if you could give one advice on what a higher education institution or a current employer can do to support the transition to non-academic labor market, what would that be? And I think that we could move around. So maybe we could start by Masoud, if okay.
Yeah, so I was thinking actually what to say on this, what they can do, because I don't want to repeat myself again, you know. So and I could hear lots of good advices already from other speakers. So what they can do, the institutions, I just want to maybe something again related to using the other people's experience, you know, like networking, connecting these scholars at risk to the let's say what I said, like master's students. They have this kind of forums in any university, as far as I know, in any kind of country they have, because they are very well connected to the local market. Most of I can speak about the case of France, for example. Most of the students, after even during actually their engineering undergraduate degree, they have the periods of time they work with the industry. So that's already inside the education. So they are very well aware, local students themselves, of the whole, let's say, market out there, the connections, everything. So I think that is something to do for all scholars at risk, and how institutions can help for creating this connection might be by giving the scholars at risk, if they are working on research projects or whatever, but also some tasks, some activities to work with the students, you know, in those, let's say, local universities which they are hosted. So I think that's that can be something very, very helpful, because again, in my case, I could know many students. When I started to teach few classes in the university, I started to know many students. They were already working with different companies, and through them I started to learn the name of the companies and which kind of work they do there and so on. So that connection can be created. I think that will be great help for the scholars.
Thank you, Masoud. Thank you. I would like to ask Therese or Hela or Cristina if you would also like to comment on this question.
Yeah, sure. We work very much with this right now here in Sweden. We do a project about especially what are the higher education institutions supposed to do to support international research is not just at risk, but of course included as well. So what we see as one of the main thing we need to do is to structurally help researchers understand their role outside academia. It's a lot of focus need to be put on the mental shift that's usually need to take place, whether you had prepared for this or not during your previous work experience, but help them with the tools to just like understanding their role outside academia. And another part that we also found is that we, together with the surrounding society, companies, other agencies, or other important actors, we need to sort of help, especially companies, understand the research, what uniqueness a researcher can contribute with in companies. That they can. I guess it's quite daunting if you haven't had anyone with a PhD background before to take your first in, but we need to help them understand the big value they bring into any company. So those two perspectives, I would say, are the most important from my view.
Thank you. Yeah,
I would like to complement that. Thank you. And is that we need to offer an internship for PhD students. That's something that has been mentioned from multiple parts. Internships usually, or side jobs, or collaborative projects are the easiest way to get to know a company, a student, and develop a relationship. And it is something that is not quite common. Another part is helping the supervisors of the PhD students to understand that the industry path should be supported, and they should kind of encourage the student not only go through the academic path, but also like explore relationships with companies. And lastly, from the company side, work with incubators. PhD students tend to work for knowledge-based companies, and of course, there's large organizations with R&D departments, and this process is normalized. On the other hand, incubators can create these links and networks with the PhD and the universities.
Thank you, Hela. Thank you very much, Cristina. Thank you. And I also wanted to ask Henriette if you have any, is there any recommendations that are coming from the project itself, from the Inspireurope project, that you would also like to share within this setting?
Thanks, Carolina. And yes, absolutely. And in a way, the recommendations that we wrote several years ago really reiterate with the discussion that we had today. So if you would have asked me first, I would have said things, that came up throughout all the presentations and inputs today, from to the university side, how they can support us. We heard a lot about, severe services that universities might already offer anyway, building your CV, networking with industry, business, university collaboration, entrepreneurship, those kind of things. Those are indeed things that universities are doing, also host universities, but these are things that need to be directly offered to the researchers that they are hosting, and perhaps in some cases also really be tweaked. I think one thing that perhaps didn't come up so much, but I still would like to mention it, is for a recommendation for university or what they should do, managing expectations. I think we do see that research fellows come from often from countries where a tenure path is the common way to go in academia. However, unfortunately, due to the academic labor market in Europe, this is not the case at in most European higher education or research systems. So just, to guide researchers at risk, to tell or give them clear information about the shortage of tenure positions or how it works to get one in the end of the day, but also underlining the high percentage of PhDs that do actually end up going successfully so into the non-academic labor markets. I think this is something that universities can do. And as my last word, our recommendations, and you can find them on the website, we'll share them afterwards, also include some points for employers, which were lovely put together by many of the speakers today. So I think the only thing that I would like to underline is that, yes, we are talking about international talent and current host institutions and also international organizations supporting researchers at risk. And Therese or Marina, I'm not sure, I'm going to use your words here. We need to help companies understand this and understand how to tap this talent pool. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Henriette. Thank you so much for also bridging and putting everything together. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank all our speakers for their valuable contribution today, and also to all participants in this webinar. As mentioned previously, a survey will be shared by EUA, as well as the presentations and the link to the recording. There are 2 webinars left within the project, and the upcoming one is the one on peer and mentoring approaches, and is scheduled for April 19th at 11 o'clock during the stakeholder forum in Berlin. But it will be in a hybrid version, and it will also be followed by a guideline. So this discussion that we had here today will also be a valuable bridge and a contribution into the further work with the development of the upcoming webinar. So I would like you to recommend you to also use the link to the SAR Europe website, where you can find previous webinars and also written reports, but also information about the upcoming activities within the project. So by this, I would like to say thank you once again for both speaking and for participating in this webinar, and let's keep the conversation going. And I would like to wish you a nice day ahead. Thank you very much.